recognize everybody by saying, "What's up, guys?"
All right, Len, you ready?
Yeah.
We welcome in a man that doesn't let one thing define him. But if you want to try, you can start by calling him a consensus All-American, first team All-ACC, and two-time second team All-ACC player. He scored 3,948 points over his 10-year pro career between 5 organizations, both in the ABA and NBA. If there was a missed shot, you knew where to find him. A man of many trades off the court, an education grad from Maryland, a JD from Harvard, an attorney, college hoops announcer, and senior lecturer in the sports management program at Columbia. Ivy might as well be his favorite color, as he's spent a lot of time in that league. Standing at 6'9", the only thing that phases this guy is the Apple iOS software update. We'll stay away from talking any trash to avoid taking out the garbage. We welcome in a living legend, Len Elmore. What's going on?
Gentlemen, it's nice to be with you.
It is a pleasure having you on quite a momentous day for this country. And we just wanted to really say, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. And we're really looking to dive into, the life you've had and the playing career and everything you've done post.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. And you're right, it is a momentous day. Let's really revel in the optimism going forward.
Yeah, and I couldn't say it any better than that. And what I like to do is start out with the early life, a little before you were in the professionals. You were in the Brooklyn housing projects in 1952, and I think that can do a lot to help shape a man and a player for what they become. And I wanted to kick it to Brad, since I know he's had some questions about how your childhood shaped you.
Yeah, so Len, I graduated with a degree in economics, so I tend to look at everything from that aspect first. And I'm curious, when I look at the history of the Brooklyn economy, it looks like you were coming of age, well after that World War II Reconstruction period, and more so the late cycle capitalism, white flight period of Brooklyn with inequality and crime. I'm curious, did you feel any of that economic anxiety as you were a young teenager, whether it be through you personally or your parents?
Well, I would say this, Brad. The economic anxiety certainly existed. I mean, my dad didn't get past the 10th grade. He was a World War II veteran, stationed over in Japan in the occupational forces. And my mom, who was a high school graduate, actually salutatorian of her school, she had an HBCU scholarship, but she couldn't take it because her family in dirt poor part of Louisiana was so poor that they had to send her to New York to work with my aunt to send money at home. So we did grow up in the projects. Interestingly enough, though, in those projects, there were a mix of people, relatively diverse, primarily Black and Jewish, many of whom were post-war folks who were striving. And eventually that white flight did occur. But we flew out of there as well. My mom and dad both wound up getting passing grades on civil service exams for the city of New York, and became city employees. My father was a sanitation man. My mother worked as a clerk, and we moved to a small house with my grandparents in Queens, which is a working class neighborhood, South Jamaica, Springfield Gardens, where in that neighborhood, everyone, it was primarily Black, and everyone was a city or state or federal employee. You were either a policeman, a sanitation man, a postal worker, a fireman. And so that was kind of the meat of my development. Certainly up until the 4th grade, I was in the projects, but then after that, we moved to that neighborhood in Queens. So, we had a taste of that life, both from a somewhat anxious economic standpoint to a little more relaxed. But we were never at a point where my parents could say we have made it, because we continue to strive.
I'm curious, today is a special day, being inauguration day, and I think the effect that, jobs programs and government positions maybe have had on your life are especially, relevant to you. Does this day mean something to you more than others?
Well, I mean, of course, it means something in that we have to focus on optimism. The last 4 years have been difficult for any number of people who are freedom loving, focused on the democratic process and on transparency, honesty, and servant leadership. We were lacking that over the last 4 years. And I don't mind saying it. Now we have an opportunity with someone, both the president and the vice president, who were, officers in as elected officials, and who seem to uphold those elements that the people strive for. You may not believe in everything that they believe in from a political standpoint, philosophically on the political spectrum, but nevertheless, I think the honesty element, the transparency, the truthfulness, I think is something that both of them have stood for in their careers, and we are going back to that. That's something we become used to as a nation, and we lost that for 4 years, and now hopefully we will regain that momentum as a nation when we can now start to unite.
Yeah, and agreed with everything you said. And Len, I appreciate you shedding some light on your upbringing, because I think for a lot of times the average fan might assume that, you've come from a family of athletes, or that it was always handed to you. And that's not always the case. You played your high school ball at Power Academy in New York, and this was known as a, quote, powerhouse, as it's produced some notable NBA affiliates, including yourself, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Chris Mullin, and the Iron Horse referee himself, Dick Bavetta. But basketball wasn't always in your cards. And the question, don't you want to play a sport with someone your own size, might have been one of the most influential things said to you, because you might have not known which way you were supposed to run after the initial tip-off, but that quickly changed.
It did.
And you know what? You led them to a 22-0 record and the #1 ranking in the nation your senior year. In addition to basketball, it seems like this school really helped shape you as a person. The guidance from late coach, and I apologize if I butcher his name, Jack Cooner?
That's correct.
Okay. And some of the teachers really helped stress some discipline, responsibility, and the strength of education. Now, staying with your basketball career for now, your success didn't go unnoticed, because you ultimately earned a scholarship at the University of Maryland, and you were the man on campus, earning co-captain status, being a 3-time All-ACC player, an All-American in 1974, and you owned the rebounding category at Maryland. You are still the all-time leader in rebounds in a game, season, and career. I just want to say Windex should have approached you for a sponsorship as you cleaned the boards. But I know that Brad has a question he wants to ask about your college career and a game in particular.
I did. So we talked with Adrian Dantley, and he took pride in being the team that was able to end Bill Walton's win streak. And I saw that your Maryland team lost to him by 1 point. I'd be interested to hear what you and your team's mindset was entering that game.
Well, we had viewed Bill and his awesome team his junior year when they beat Memphis State. And Bill actually shot 23 out of 24, I believe, was the number from the field, if you can believe that. And, I took pride in my defense. As mentioned, you talk about a lot of my records. I mean, I could score, but on this team with Tom McMillan and John Lucas, I was like the third option. But I took a lot of pride in my defense. And, I said to myself, knowing that they were the first game we played the next year, I said, 23 out of 24, that's not happening. So I took that tape and I watched that videotape all summer. In my dreams, I could see what Bill was doing and what he was going to do. And, our mindset was, we are as good as anyone. Certainly, Coach Drizel had built the program up as, potentially, and I emphasize potentially, the UCLA of the East, recognizing UCLA's dominance, and thought that Maryland, with the resources they had, the location, playing in a league like the ACC, we had the potential to be that dominant. So, now, dominance, dreams of dominance and destiny would meet reality when we went out to Pauley Pavilion in Los Angeles. And so we were ready to play. Unfortunately, we came up short playing at Pauley. We lose by 1. We had an opportunity to win the game in the last possession. We outscored them in the last 3 minutes, 9-zip, held them scoreless. But, we had possession down 1, and John Lucas gets hand checked out of bounds. Of course, the late Booker Turner, who was a prominent ref and ultimately became the supervisor of referees in the Pac-8 at the time. His nickname, unfortunately, was Booker Bruin. So, we knew what we were in for, and ultimately it came to pass. However, my idea of being able to stand up to Bill Walton came to pass. I mean, blocked his first 2 shots, and he shot 8 for 24 that game. So we knew 23 out of 24 was not happening. I think I had 18 and 15, but as I said, we came up short. Was it 65, 64, something like that, and we acquitted ourselves well. AD and those guys. I think John Shoemate, who was the center for that team and a friend of mine, they were fortunate to play them at Notre Dame. Had we gotten UCLA at our place, I suspect we probably would have beaten them by 10. But if those kinds of wishes came true, we obviously all would be very happy. But that's destiny.
Len, I knew that you were meticulous doing my research, but when you told me that you spent the summer before looking at film, Bill Walton shot 96% going 23 of 24, and then to shoot 33% shooting 8 of 24 really just shows me another level of your preparation. So that's really cool to hear. And, during your time at Maryland, you attended a pivotal time for this country, as this was in the early 1970s as the Vietnam War was going on. And as an athlete, you were instructed not to join the protests or you might lose your scholarship. But you found other ways to be involved. And as an English major, you found activism in the classroom through your writing and the interpretations of literary texts that you ventured into during discussions. Outside the classroom, you led an after-school program for junior high kids nearby in Seat Pleasant, ultimately earning the University of Maryland Citizenship Award upon graduation. So an impact on and off the court. But I know Coach James wanted to ask you a question about a certain game not against UCLA.
Yeah, and I think it was funny that you're saying kind of putting dreams into reality, whether that's guarding Bill Walton or becoming president. I think, like, as a coach and teacher, thinking about those things and putting them into play definitely help. It's definitely a coachable thing to do. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. You played on a legendary Terps team. You won 81% of your games when you played. It really changed the thought of the University of Maryland basketball as a bona fide winning program. And my grandparents, they met each other at Maryland, and I would always hear about this legendary team and how damn good you guys were. I want to touch on what's called the greatest ACC game of all time. That's, of course, the 1974 ACC championship after losing by 1 to the same team 2 years prior, and then a 100 overtime loss to NC State with the likes of David Thompson. Tom Burleson on the other side was quoted saying, I think we just beat the second best team in the nation tonight. I've seen so many teams win an NCAA championship after losing their conference tournament. Of course, it's unfortunate to be on the other end of history, but the NCAA would change that rule for the better. And now more than one team from a conference can go to that NCAA tournament. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's the only solace that we could get from losing to NC State. I mean, there's no question that they were a better team, maybe by just that much. But, they found a way. And for the most part, David Thompson was the difference, either, scoring, 35, 40 points against us individually, or creating, such a threat that other guys got a chance to get off. I mean, I look at Tom Burleson, who had the game of his life, take nothing away from him in that one game, simply because I was only playing him halfway. Prior to that, I had guarded him. One game he shot 3 of 19 from the field. And, at 7'4", he is a difficult guy to deal with. But, I found a way. And in this game, we decided we were going to try to keep David Thompson from hurting us. So I kind of had to focus on him. Everywhere he went, I would kind of get in the lane and try to take the lane away. But they did a great job of reversing the ball. And by the time I got to my man at 7'4", he was like 2 feet in the paint. And at 6'9", with a 7-inch advantage and a little bit of luck, he had his way. And I have to tip my cap to Tommy, because that was a game for him to have. But again, our solace is that the NCAA did see the absurdity of the number 1 team in the nation and number 4 team in the nation playing each other in a conference, and one of them was going to go home. And the following year, they expanded the field, recognizing that they couldn't have that again. And so, if nothing else, we changed history. But I would gladly trade that for a win in that game, no question about it, because I think we had an opportunity to win a national championship. And to this day, we believe that if the field was expanded, out of those 3 years that we played, we might have gotten one.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. We all grow up and live in Maryland and are huge Maryland fans, and we'd love to see another banner up there in addition with that 2002. Len, I love the optimism, and regardless of the outcome, your success at the collegiate level didn't go unnoticed, because you ultimately played at the highest level of competitive basketball, getting drafted by the Washington Bullets in 1974. You would never play for them, however, as you chose the Indiana Pacers instead. And what I think is interesting is the ABA policy was that if any team thinks it can sign a player, it need only ask the league for permission. So you actually preferred to play in Washington, but your lawyer, Norman Glass, I hope I said that right.
Yes, you did.
Got you a multi-year contract that was the 3rd largest that year, behind Bill Walton and Tom Burleson, who we've talked a little bit about on this pod. There was a substantial difference in the offer between those teams, which played a huge part in your signing. Len, you're an educated man, and I read you wanted to be a lawyer since you were a kid. I can see why you would take the bigger paycheck, but was any part of you thinking about making a counteroffer to Washington to see how much they valued your services?
Well, we did. And before he passed away, and during an interview that I had with Abe Poland at the time, he was looking for a general manager, and he wanted to talk to me. He admitted that was probably one of the biggest mistakes he ever made, not getting involved in the negotiation. But let's face it, first of all, we did our homework, recognized that there was going to be an absorption of some ABA teams. People call it a merger, but the NBA really absorbed the 4 most prominent, most lucrative teams, the ones who are most financially stable, and the Pacers were definitely one of them. And them having my rights, and recognize that the offer that they made was substantially higher, as you mentioned. They offered me a 6-year guarantee. Washington offered a 3-year contract with 2 years guaranteed, which turned out to be, a godsend that I made the choice to play with the Pacers, because in my 3rd year, I actually ruptured tendons in my right knee and missed just about all of the season. And so, if I had taken the Washington deal, I might not have had a chance to have any financial security going forward. So, it was one of those kinds of situations where I was very fortunate, but smart enough for us to do our homework and make an informed decision.
And I definitely think you made the right one, A, for the financial aspect, but B, the first 2 seasons for the Pacers organization, you definitely made your mark. After averaging 6.5 points and 5.5 or over 5 rebounds as a rookie, you really came on to the senior 2nd year. You averaged a double-double with 14.6 points per game, 10.8 rebounds per game, including 3 on the offensive end, 2.3 blocks per game, and almost 2 steals. In fantasy basketball, that would be a real asset. But I know that James has a question about kind of the ABA experience.
Absolutely. So in your first year, you make it to the ABA finals. So you're playing alongside who finally got in, Hall of Fame, George McGinnis. He led the playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists. You've called him the LeBron before LeBron.
Absolutely.
You matched up against another Hall of Famer in Artis Gilmore, and you had your hands full there, but you knew how to play against big men. I mean, you've been doing it up until this point in your career. You ultimately come up short. What did you gain from that experience? And did you feel like this is it? I made it. I mean, you're a big part of that finals and playing a lot of minutes, trying to guard the likes of Artis Gilmore.
Well, I mean, James, I've never ever said I've made it. I continue to say I'm getting there, even at this ripe age. But I recognize that I did have the skill. I mean, starting with the Pacers, I started out slowly, not really recognizing what Bob Leonard, Slick Leonard wanted, our coach. And so initially, I didn't play a whole lot, but my minutes gradually came. We talk about the totality of my numbers that year, but towards the end of the season, I really started to come on. In fact, the first playoff game against the San Antonio Spurs with Ice Gervin, James Silas, a bunch of other guys, Swin Nader, George Carlin, those guys. I had 30 points in that first game, including, the game winner. And so throughout that series, we beat a great San Antonio team. Then the next series, we played a Denver Rockets team coached by Larry Brown that had not lost a game at home. And in the playoffs, in that series, we beat them in the last 3 games. We beat them on the road at Denver. And so we were very confident. But then we come up against the Kentucky Colonels team that had some great players, including Artis Gilmore. But, they had other guys who could really get the job done. Hubie Brown was the coach there. Ironically, I wound up playing for Hubie Brown in my last season with the Knicks. But, I thought that I belonged. And the following year, I was given, more opportunity to prove myself, along with my teammate Billy Knight. We made the playoffs again that year. But, I was really feeling as though, yes, I did belong, recognizing that the merger was coming the following year. But in training camp, I wrecked my knee and never really got a chance to play in that first year of the merger. And beyond that, once you're hurt like that, unless you're an absolute superstar, they look at you as kind of damaged goods and you got to start all over again, which, I did. I got to play 7 more years after that. But it took a while before I became a starter again in the NBA.
Yeah, I saw that when you did become a starter, you got to the New Jersey Nets, and then you're playing alongside 2 Maryland alums, 2 rookies, and Albert King and Buck Williams. How was that experience, playing with 3 Maryland guys in the front court?
Well, first, it was great. Every time you got on the floor, either at home or on the road, and the public address announcer would announce your name and the school you went to. And, of course, when they announced the front line, from Maryland, number 44, from Maryland, number 52, from Maryland, they got tired of saying from Maryland. And, in fact, I think that for the amount of games that we all played together, I think it was like 79, 81 games, something like that, we probably hold a record for 3 guys from the same school as starters. I know that's for the trivia buffs to determine, but it was a great opportunity because here I was, a grizzled veteran playing with 2 outstanding rookies. Buck Williams became a terrific player. He was an outstanding rebounder in Maryland as well, although he didn't break my record, and I keep it. And Albert King was an outstanding scorer. And, we started out 2-14. When I got to that team during their second game, I was traded from Milwaukee, and where I went from being a backup center and a backup power forward to a starting center. We started out 2-14 because we were a mix of grizzled veterans and first and second year players. But ultimately, we righted the ship, wound up winning 40-plus games, and made the playoffs that year. A lot of it had to do with Larry Brown's coaching, and who I consider probably the best coach I ever played for in the pros. And and the temerity, the stick-to-itiveness, and perseverance, obviously, of the young players, particularly Buck and Albert. And, we had guys like James Bailey from Rutgers who could really leap to the sky, Mike O'Corn from North Carolina, and then the veterans like Ray Williams, the late Ray Williams, who was a terrific scorer, Clarence Footswalker, an outstanding point guard, Darwin Cook, a guy a lot of people don't know. I went to Portland, but he was a terrific utility guy. and then we had Otis Birdsong. I mean, it just a number of guys who were cast-offs at one time, but we gelled together to really become a force.
So, Len, it's very unfortunate about the knee injuries at a young age, as I feel like you showed some real promise. You had the athleticism, you were very coachable. And in terms of basketball, you'd been playing a relatively short time compared to others. But before we transition, I know that you know your career high in points and rebounds. You had 35 and 19 versus Marvin News Barnes, your former teammate during those college tournaments in the St. Louis Spirit. But I want to know, do you know what you shot from the field and from the free throw line that game?
No. Go ahead, Eric. You're going to tell me.
So you know what Bill Walton shot in a game, but you don't know what you shot your career high?
I honestly, I was never concerned about my numbers. Like I said, I took pride in my defense.
Okay. Well,
that's surprising. It feels like you have perfect recall practically. You know everybody's stats and heights and weights.
Well, I knew I had 35 points that game. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, so I saw it.
But I do know I played against Marvin, Moses, and actually Maurice Lucas. That was a heck of a front line to be able to do that kind of damage. So I know that.
So I was gonna ask you if you knew your career high, but I saw in another interview that you said it. So you shot 15 of 26 from the field that game, 5 of 9 from the line, and played all 48 minutes. So pretty good stat line.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little bit of game.
Okay, a little bit. But Len, I'm a believer in things happening for a reason. And obviously, I don't wish injury upon anyone, but it seemed like your situation was a catalyst for going to law school. And you would begin that law degree at Harvard in the fall of 1984. And after you graduated, you succeeded quickly in the legal field. You handled mostly robberies, assaults, and larcenies to begin with, and you got a lot of notoriety from your peers. And being on the other side of sports, the business side, you started your own firm, Precept Sports. Did I say it okay?
Precept.
Okay, I'm 2 for 3 today. I'll take that. But not only did you have the intelligence to represent them, but your company stressed pro athletes, particularly black athletes, on giving back to the community. And you represented Derek Steele and Walt Williams, both local legends, but played different sports. But if you thought the book on Len was over, it's far from it. Because if you're a millennial like us, you didn't grow up watching Len play, but you heard his energetic voice calling basketball games. Across your 31-year sports television announcing career, you worked with ESPN, CBS Sports, and Fox Sports/FS1 calling notable games, including the Christian Laettner game-winning shot over Kentucky in 1992. Len, currently you are a senior lecturer in the Columbia University Sports Management program, right?
That's correct.
Where you were awarded the 2019 Dean's Excellence Award, and you currently serve as a director on the public company board of 1-800-Flowers.com, and you are a commissioner on the Knight Commission for Intercollegiate Athletics, where you chair on Racial Equality Task Force. And although 2020 might have been a bad year for most, in August, you were appointed to the Board of Advisors for the Shirley Povich Center at the University of Maryland College Park Merrill School of Journalism. So, Len, you have accomplished so much in your life. And believe me, I left out a lot for those that were wondering. You overcame a difficult childhood. You played basketball at the highest level. You got a law degree from arguably the most prestigious school in America. You ran your own law firm. You commentated games. You currently teach master's courses and have won numerous accolades throughout your career. Is there any job or position or career field that you would have liked to work in that you haven't?
Wow. I've been very blessed to be able to do what I have always wanted to do. And sometimes those things hadn't come to me until, they had presented themselves. It goes back to growing up as a kid. I read a biography of Paul Robeson. And, Paul Robeson was a Renaissance man, obviously an All-American football player, played in the NFL for a period of time that helped him work his way through law school at Columbia Law School, at NYU, then Columbia. He also played in the Negro Leagues, played baseball. But he was obviously an outspoken proponent for equal rights and human rights. and a concert singer as well as an actor. And having, so many of those skills was just so attractive to me. And I guess in the back of my mind, I said that, there are a lot of things I'd like to do, and let's see if I can do them. So I've been given opportunity, been able to, to take the opportunity and make it work for me. I give a lot of credit to my parents, particularly my mother. As I mentioned, she lived in on a dirt poor sharecropper farm in Louisiana, yet got a scholarship to an HBCU, but never got the chance to do it. She and my father kind of sacrificed when we got that home, that little house in Queens. I can tell you that, the yard was, as I say, it was about as big as a postage stamp until you had to mow it. Then it felt like it was Central Park. And then they finished the basement. I had a little area where we would call a library, except the little bookshelves only had a couple of sets of books. One was Bible stories, and the other were encyclopedias that they went in debt to get for us. And so that kind of sacrifice really impressed upon me the importance of education. To this day, I'm proud of the fact that my wife and I, who James, by the way, I met my wife at the University of Maryland. So, that's tell your grandparents we have something in common.
The school of love.
Exactly. But, we're proud that our kids are able to get the finest education. We've got a Princeton graduate who's got a master's from the Citadel. We've got a Columbia undergrad who also has got an MBA from Columbia Business School. So we've imparted that importance to them as well. And so when you say, are there things that I would like to have done? I look at this election and the president of the United States, but I realize that's not really what I wanted to do, because had I wanted to do it, I probably would have pursued it. I'm happy. I'm happy where I am. As I said, I'm blessed. I've had impact. I've tried to do the right thing throughout, and I've tried to influence particularly young people that, your fortunes are based upon your effort and your preparedness. And, if you are focused on doing and being, you can do and you can be.
If you ever decide to run for office, you have my vote. We are speaking with Len Elmore, a 10-year NBA, ABA veteran, great all-around guy and a man of all trades. Len, we like to get our guests out of here on this, a little rapid fire, this or that. You up for it?
Let's do it. Can't guarantee you'll get the answers you want, but.
All right. Well, some of these questions you likely haven't heard before. So we'll start out. Would you rather win a championship in basketball or win a court case?
Oh, my goodness. Having won more court cases than championships, I'd have to say at this stage, it really depends on the court case. Remember, I used to represent the city of New York and the state of New York against, police brutality. So unfortunately, those are really tough cases to win. Now, looking back on it, I probably would like to have won for the victims, won more of those cases, even though you have the evidence, juries were loath to convict police officers for, whatever reason.
That's a great answer. Would you rather have to complete your JD again from Harvard or only be able to watch the Hallmark Channel for 3 months during college basketball season?
I really loved going to law school. I loved being there after playing for 10 years and being out of school for 10 years. It was refreshing, exhilarating, and challenging. So I still I'd like to go back.
Okay, well, that wasn't the answer I was expecting, but I know you don't want to give up your college basketball.
Well, my wife loves the Hallmark Channel anyway, so I get to watch that too.
Okay, all right. Well, noted for future questions. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
When it's placed between the bun, yes.
Okay.
So
all
that's
right,
a terrible answer, Len.
Would you rather eat brownies with a chance there's rocks in them or eat an entire jar of mayonnaise?
Ooh. I put mayo on my sandwiches, but an entire jar, give me the brownie.
Okay. Well, you're just going to nibble around and hope you don't bite into one?
Yeah, and, who knows? And if I do, I won't chew too heavily.
Okay. Would you rather be able to speak every language or speak to animals?
Interesting. Every language.
Okay. All right. What, pancakes, waffles, or French toast?
Pancakes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of an unpopular answer. I like it. Any specialties pancake?
I like banana on chocolate chip
Okay.
or just good old buttermilk.
Can't go wrong with
It's
those.
all about the syrup, though, man. It's the syrup.
That's true. That's true. We got a couple
What
left.
syrup are we going with? Maple syrup or?
Yeah, I'm old fashioned, man. Maple syrup is.
Right.
My grandmother used to try to put the cane sugar syrup.
Oh, yeah.
The Cairo alga syrup or whatever. The syrup that Hank Aaron used to push. You guys are too young for that, but he used to be in Ebony magazine and Jet magazine, pushing this one syrup made out of cane sugar.
I'm gonna look if I can find it after. We got a few more here. Would you rather be stranded on an island alone or with the person you hate most?
The person I hate most, because I'd expect to be a challenge. I'd say within a few days we'd be friends.
Oh, I love it. Optimism. Would you rather find $10 on the ground or find all your missing socks?
All my missing socks, man. You don't know how much of a pain in the ass it is when after doing the wash, I got disparate socks hanging around.
There is a sock thief. There's a universal sock thief, just like there is tooth fairy. Two more. Would you rather run as fast as a cheetah or fly 1 mile per hour?
Ooh. I'd like to fly.
Okay, that's a good answer. And the last one, Len, you shot 41% for your pro career. You had 0 3-pointers made, but I give you one uncontested.
I thought I made one in the ABA.
All right, I'll have.
I remember that.
I'll have to stat check that. I give you one shot uncontested at the elbow right now. Are you making it?
At this moment, at this stage, I think I could.
Okay.
Because that's where I used to shoot from anyway.
Yeah, that I did look at. That was your sweet spot. I love the confidence.
Good high low guy. It's muscle memory. You never lose that.
That is very true. Len, thank you so much for joining us. It was a real treat having you on.
I appreciate it, guys. It was fun. Thanks.
And for those that want to see more of him, you can follow him on Twitter at Len Elmore, just his name. Len, before we log off, is there anything that you'd like to plug or to tell our audience?
Nothing except, as I said from the outset, we're a nation that needs to get united, get behind democracy and understanding that a house divided will fall, and that's Lincoln, but that's so prophetic right now. And I think after the events of January 6th, that we need to find a way to unite, because this is the greatest country on earth, and we need to continue that.
I just felt so passionate listening to Len's speech. If you are listening to this and you're not following him on Twitter, make sure you click that follow button. He is a great follow, has plenty of great insight. Len, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.